The Man-Eaters of Tsavo by J.H. Patterson. Foreword. It was some 7 or 8 years ago that I first read in the pages of the Field newspaper a brief account written by Colonel J.H. Patterson, then an engineer engaged on the construction of the Ugandan Railway, of the Tsavo man-eating lions. My own long experience of African hunting told me at once that every word in this thrilling narrative was absolutely true. Nay, more, I knew that the author had told his story in a most modest manner, laying but little stress on the dangers he had run when sitting up at nights to try and compass the death of the terrible man-eaters, especially on that one occasion when, whilst watching from a very light scaffolding, supported only by 4 rickety poles, he was himself stalked by one of the dread beasts. Fortunately, he did not lose his nerve, and succeeded in shooting the lion, just when it was on the point of springing upon him. But had this lion approached him from behind, I think it would probably have added Colonel Patterson to its long list of victims. For in my own experience I have known of 3 instances of men having been pulled from trees or huts built on platforms at a greater height from the ground than the crazy structure on which Colonel Patterson was watching on that night of terrors. From the time of Herodotus until today, lion stories innumerable have been told and written. I have put some on record myself, but no lion story I have ever heard or read equals in its long-sustained and drastic interest the story of the Tsavo man-eaters as told by Colonel Patterson. A lion story is usually a tale of adventures, often very terrible and pathetic, which occupied but a few hours of one night, but the tale of the Tsavo man-eaters is an epic of terrible tragedy spread out over several months, and only at last brought to an end by the resource and determination of one man. It was some years after I had read the first account published of the Tsavo man-eaters that I made the acquaintance of President Roosevelt. I told him all I remembered about it, and he was so deeply interested in that story, as he is in all true stories of the nature and characteristics of wild animals, that he begged me to send him the short printed account as published in the Field. This I did, and it was only in the last letter I received from him that, referring to this story, President Roosevelt wrote, "I think that the account of the Ugandan man-eating lions, described in those 2 articles you sent me, is the most remarkable account of which we have any record. It is a great pity that it should not be preserved in permanent form." Well, I am now glad to think that it will be preserved in permanent form, and I venture to assure Colonel Patterson that President Roosevelt will be amongst the most interested readers of his book. It is probable that the chapters recounting the story of the Tsavo man-eating lions will be found more absorbing than the other portions of Colonel Patterson's book, but I think that most of his readers will agree with me that the whole volume is full of interest and information. The account given by Colonel Patterson of how he overcame all the difficulties which confronted him in building a strong and permanent railway bridge across the Tsavo River makes excellent reading, whilst the courage he displayed in attacking single-handed lions, rhinoceroses, and other dangerous animals was surpassed by the pluck, tact, and determination he showed in quelling the formidable mutiny which once broke out amongst his native Indian workers. Finally, let me say that I have spent the best part of 2 nights reading the proof sheets of Colonel Patterson's book, and I can assure him that the time passed like magic. My interest was held from the first page to the last, for I felt that every word I read was true. F.C. Selous, Worplesdon, Surrey, September 18th, 1907.